Hello everyone, just thought I'd go ahead and make a quick video today to show the power system upgrade that I'm going to be doing to Lil Blue. Basically, as I am about to move into the van full-time, I've been converting the van to basically function better in full-time mode versus part-time, and part of that means setting up a decent house battery system and coming up with a way to charge the system, um, basically using the vehicle. Since I don't have solar, that means charging the house battery through the car's alternator, and that means basically either doing what I've been doing right now, which is kind of a clutch system that I'll show you in a moment, or biting the bullet and actually wiring from the vehicle battery to the house battery and letting it charge through that. Okay, this is a quick review of how the power system in Lil Blue II is currently set up. Basically, I have the vehicle battery right here, which is just normal, and I have an inverter that I installed under the hood that I can turn on here once I've got it plugged in, and it gives me a readout of the battery, how much power is being pulled, and how much is left in the battery. Right now it says 12.7, so the battery probably needs to charge, and it can output 120 volts. Nothing's being drawn right now, and I basically have a 120 volt line that runs underneath and then out around this way here. You can see I ran it up underneath here and into the vehicle, and it goes all the way to the rear of the vehicle, where I have a power jack here that it plugs into, and then I can have 120 volts in the vehicle. Pretty much anytime I have the inverter on, but typically I wouldn't turn it on unless the vehicle's running, because when you use that power, you're using the vehicle's battery power, and you could drain it down to the point where the vehicle doesn't start anymore. Now, this worked great, and I could cook from back here. You know, I set up like a mini kitchenette here, and I can cook back here and do things. But having that system with the power running all the time whenever I want to use it may not be the most practical or ideal. And also, you know, like for example, running fans all night, which I'm going to have to do now because I'm going to be sleeping in the vehicle all night, which means trying to stay cool. So I've been developing systems like the evaporative cooler you can see up there, and that would require the fan to run all night, which could drain a battery. So I've tested the fan on this portable unit, and it does run through one night, maybe 2 nights, but then it would need to be recharged. And unfortunately, this battery pack, even when you plug it into a house 120 volt AC plug, it takes like a full day to charge back up, which makes it not practical for me to use. That means I have to upgrade the house battery for the vehicle because I'm going to be using it every day. So I basically took my old power pack, which I'll show you here. Okay, this is my old power pack, and actually I have the old battery from the vehicle that I put in here. It's kind of in bad shape and not holding a good charge, but it's what I got, and since my budget for this conversion was pretty much almost zero, I'm making do with what I have. It's a lead acid battery, just a regular vehicle battery, which isn't the safest, but I'll be using it until I can afford to get like an AGM, you know, or even a sealed acid battery, which would be safer than just using something like this. And what I did to try to charge the system back up is I actually have a regular charger right here, and I can power it from the 120 volt output that I get, you know, from the inverter that's under the hood. And this thing will charge at 2 amps, 4 amps, or 6 amps. So when the vehicle's running, I'm generating electricity, converting it into 120 volts, running it through this charger here, a battery charger, and I can charge the system up. The problem is it's only charging at 6 amp, which I think takes like a whole day to charge, like overnight to charge the battery back up. And I can't afford to run the van 24/7, so I'm trying to see if I'm basically running a direct 12-volt line from the battery, the vehicle battery, to the house battery, which is this battery right here, will allow it to charge faster. And that's all the components you see in the back. These are the components that we'll be using. I got this at Home Depot. Basically all the stuff I bought from either Walmart or Home Depot. I bought 10 gauge wiring, which I will be using to run directly to the battery, the vehicle battery, into the van, and then to hook up to the Leisure, or the house battery. And these other components are to help me hook it all up. What I plan to do is run this cable and hook it up to the vehicle battery. Then when it comes out towards the house battery, I want to run it through a fuse for safety. This is a 30 amp. It'll hold up to 30 amps. So I'm going to put in a 30 amp fuse right here just for additional safety in case there's a short circuit or something goes wrong. So after it goes to the fuse, it will run into the vehicle, into the front of the vehicle there. And then I will have a switch, a manual switch that I can switch on and off. When I switch the switch on, it means that the 12-volt line will be live and should be charging my Leisure or house battery. And then when I flip it off, it'll stop the charging. And the reason I want to put the switch in there is because I couldn't afford an isolator right now. So I'm going with a really simple manual switching system. I'm going to switch the switch on when I'm driving so that electricity from the vehicle battery can flow through the line into the house battery and charge that. Then when I'm done driving, I'll switch the switch off, which will isolate or separate the two batteries, so that when I pull power from the vehicle's house battery, I won't drain the car's starter battery. So the battery, the vehicle battery that's up front and under the hood, I don't want to drain that down. So I just have to remember to switch it on and off. Now this particular switch I got today because I'm planning on doing the build today, but I ordered a cooler looking switch with the light that comes on and off. But for now I'll use this one and I'll replace it with the other switch later. This one just toggles on and off. I also bought some connectors to connect the wiring and the battery. This thing says that it's for use with 12 to 10 gauge wire. And I have 10 gauge wire. You kind of want to use like the smallest gauge you can find, like 10 gauge, 8 gauge. I went with 10 because I couldn't really find connectors for 8 gauge. And just, the 10 gauge was easy to find. I just went to Home Depot and picked that up. These clamps I also bought from Home Depot. And I'm just going to use these clamps to hook the power line up to the house battery when I run it through. That way I can disconnect it. Eventually I may go ahead and put some connectors to connect it more permanently, but for now I'm planning on using the clamps. And so let's go ahead and begin the process. The first thing I'm going to do, or planning on doing, is just taking this 10 gauge wire here and putting on an attachment, one of these round attachments here, so that I can put it in that bolt right there. Then once I have attached, actually I'm going to measure the length first. I'm going to pull the wire down through there and follow pretty much the same path that I have for the 120 volt cable right here, wire that I brought through. I'm actually going to be removing the inverter from under the hood and bringing it back inside the vehicle to hook up to the leisure battery to use, since it has a reading for the level of the battery power, and I won't really be needing to run it from under the hood if I have a decent size leisure battery inside the vehicle. So we're going to actually remove this from under the hood and the inverter as well. And all that will be coming in is just a little wire here for the 10 gauge wire to run under here towards the house battery. As you can see, I've put a tip on here. I clamped it down, put one of these round tips on here. I just cut the end of the wiring there and exposed the wire. Then stuck it through there, clamped it down, so it's pretty tight now. And I'll be looping it on that. I don't know if you can see that that screw there. I'm just going to unscrew that bolt, put this there and screw it in, but I'll do that later. The first thing I need to do is determine the length I need. So I'm going to just estimate and give myself a little bit more than I think I need, and that way I'll have some leeway and can play with it a little bit. But I'm going to cut this line and pull it down and draw it through the same path that I have for this this 120 volt line right here. Actually, before running the line, I decided it would be a smart idea to go ahead and put in the fuse, the inline fuse. So what I did was I took that black 10 gauge line and I spliced it to this fuse, and then this will go right here on here, and I'll leave it so I can access the fuse and see if there's a problem. Then this other end here will hook up to the 10 gauge line, which I will pull into the vehicle. As you can see, I have now finished the splicing in of the fuse, the 30 amp fuse holder. So we just need to measure out the length of the black line and run that to the leisure or the house battery. As you can see, I've now put the screwed in or bolted in the fuse. And here's the line. I took the power inverter off because we're going to be relocating that inside. And this is the 120 volt line that was coming out here. We're going to go ahead and drop that back down and pull this line down with it so that we can run it into the van. Okay, as you can see, I've got the wire pulled down under there. I haven't put in the fuse yet. Believe it or not, that was a pain. It looks real simple to just drop it down there, but it was a pain. I'm all dirty now, I'm gonna stick my hand through, trying to make it go through, and then these stupid attachments here that I had clamped on where it spliced in kept coming off. So that's a potential problem. I may have to figure out something more permanent. These splicing things suck. But anyhow, now that we've dropped it, got the wire down here. This is the old 120 volt that we pulled, and this is the new 10 gauge wire. We're going to be running it up under there. Alright, as I said earlier, it was kind of a pain to pull the wire, and I got it underneath. I don't know if you can see the wire right here. This is the wire. It drops down over there, which I may have to tuck up underneath somehow. You don't want it catching on anything on the road. But basically, I ran it up through the parts and got it up here through the by the wheel well. And let me show you what it looks like on the other side. And I ran it from underneath up through here. This is where the baseboard was. You can see it just snaps right out. I've got the baseboard right here. It just has little plastic thingies that go into the metal clips here and hold it in place. I took out the 120 volt line, and I basically run the 10 gauge wire. I'm gonna run that through here and over towards the battery pack. I've snapped the baseboard back on, so This is where the 10 gauge line comes in, and it runs underneath the baseboard, and that goes to the back. And all that remains now is to take this line right here and run it to our battery pack right there. That's going to go to the positive connection. Okay, so I'm now inside by the battery bank, or the house battery, and I've trimmed the line, the 10 gauge line, so that it'll reach it. And there's a little bit of play here, but I gave myself about 2 feet or so, maybe 3 feet of extra line in case I decide to move the battery pack around back here. And I'm going to be putting this alligator tip on it so that I can clip it to the battery for charging. And what I did was I took the red off and slid it on top of the wire, and then I'm going to clamp that that open end over there, and then I should have a clip that I can clip on. As you can see, I've clamped down the wire onto the alligator clip, and now all that remains to do is to put this piece of plastic on here. And voila, I have an alligator clip that I'll be able to clip to the positive, which is on that side over there. I'll be able to clip this to the positive battery terminal, and then I just need to make a negative battery terminal. And instead of pulling wire for the negative, we can run the negative to the metal, a metal screw or something that's screwed into the frame of the vehicle, and that'll serve as ground, and that should complete our circuit. So the plan will be to go ahead and make now another plug, basically another 10 gauge wire to go to the negative for the ground, and that's what we'll be doing next. Okay, this is the cable that we made. We have attached an alligator clip on this end, the black one, to signify that it's the negative. Okay, and on the other end we put a little circle hookup thingy, and we're just going to put this to ground, which is a metal frame on the vehicle. And the battery's right there. So what we're going to do is have the alligator clip over there on the negative, and then we're going to run this part here to the car's metal frame. And I decided that I'm going to try to do it right here on where the seat things used to be. I take the screw off, and you can see that the metal frame is under there, the vehicle frame. So we're going to just clean that up, put our little screw eyelet there, screw it in, and we should have ground. As you can see, I've screwed in the negative cable, or the eye hole thingy there. I screwed it under there to make contact with the metal. It's nice and tight, not going anywhere. And now this other end with the alligator clip just needs to be hooked up to the battery, and our circuit's complete. The only thing we really need to do then is put in a fuse, and everything will be live. But I just realized I forgot to install the switch so that I can turn it off on command, or on demand rather. So we'll be adding the switch here in a moment. This is our old top from our home-built battery unit. I took off the 350 watt inverter that was on there, and I'm going to be putting on there the 750 watt Schumacher that was our underhood inverter. It's got a line here for negative and one for positive, which will be hooking up to the battery terminal. This time, instead of the vehicle's battery, we're going to hook it up to the house battery, and it'll pretty much work the same way. It'll convert the 12 volt battery there that we've got in our box here to produce 120 volts. And it also will have a hookup here, so we can output 12 volts as well as USB for charging. So this device will provide 12 volt, USB, and 120 volts, up to 2 slots, with 750 watts output. So that's the plan. So what we need to do now is I've got a little toggle switch. Actually, as I said earlier, I bought a better looking one that's kind of cool that I'll be installing later. But this one should do for now. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to drill a hole here into our case, and then put this guy through it and hook it up. And then our red cable, or our positive that we ran from the battery, the one that's in here that's positive, we're going to end up having to splice it before we hook it up. This was the negative, I hooked it up, but it'll hook up later, but we'll splice it so that it goes to the switch, and the switch can switch this battery connection to the vehicle battery on and off. The battery will always stay on, but the connection to the vehicle battery can be switched on and off. And the reason we want to do that is so that we can switch it on to charge the house battery using the vehicle battery, which is being charged by the alternator. And when we are parked somewhere and the vehicle is no longer generating electricity through the alternator, we want to switch it off, so that way there's no connection between this battery, the one right here, our house battery, and the van's internal starter battery, so that we don't drain that battery, the vehicle's battery. And I just have to remember to switch it on and off. Basically switch it off when I'm not driving, switch it on when I am driving around, so that the battery here, this battery, will charge up as well as the house battery. As well as the vehicle battery. To mount our switch, I drilled a hole right here. Use that big huge drill bit. Drilled a hole, and we're just going to put that in, and we should be set. Okay, as you can see, I've mounted the on-off switch. It flips off and on, off, and underneath, all we're going to do is attach our wire here. We're going to attach the black 10 gauge wire, the positive, to one end, and then the other end to the battery, the positive. And then when we flip it on and off, that should complete the connection and turn the battery connection on and off. Okay, just wanted to show you what I ended up having to do. I had to take my switch, what I had mounted on there already. I had to take this off so that I could screw these cables, the wiring in. As you can see how the switch is hooked up here. It's just got two sides, and when you flip it, you connect the wires together for the on position. On one end, I have this connector here. I put it like this so that I can have a release from the cable here that we pulled. You see, I put this other end on it, the male end, and that's the female end. It'll connect together like that and complete the circuit, complete the connection. Then on the other end, there's an alligator clip that will go to the positive on the battery. And then I just simply hook up the whole system and we should be all set. So let me go ahead and do that. Alright, our switch is mounted. Switch it on, switch it off. And there's the other underside, and we're just going to connect everything up and see how it does. Positive, which is on that side, and the negative is, which is grounded to the car here, is hooked up. So everything's hooked up right now. So in theory, the battery's connected, but we still need to put in the fuse to complete the circuit. So that's what we're going to try to do next. 30 amp fuse here that we're going to plug into our inline fuse. And once we plug that in, the system should be live. Wish me luck.